Welcome to the Long Game Podcast. I'm your host, Sandra Scaiano. And what I love about having my own podcast is bringing on women who are tuned in. They are paying attention, and they so eloquently voice emotions, detail influences, and really understand the ways we live our lives. Through my friends, I've embraced terms like vulnerable or vulnerability. Through my friends, I understand the place that this vulnerability plays in my life and business and how it shows up with the women that I work with. In today's episode, we're revisiting a few segments that highlight this. The long game is surrender. You're listening to the Long Game Podcast with Sandra Scaiano. In a world where everyone is doing, it's easy to get lost in a sea of comparison, secret tricks, and promises of overnight success. The long game is my approach to business, the actual day in and day out philosophy that you have to show up, you have to do the work, and there's no quick fixes for long-term success. I'm a web designer, digital strategist, and energetic thinker, and I'm here to share the process and lessons I experience with my clients daily who are going through the same struggles of building a business as you are. We'll hear from successful entrepreneurs sharing their long game strategies, and I'm fun, so we're going to have a little fun along the way too. Thanks for being here. Let's get to today's episode. In reviewing my first year's episodes, I discovered another theme that was present throughout, that of surrender. In a few episodes, my guests reference a spiritual surrender, one where you are releasing to the universe, a letting go, a rest, an exhale. I'm big on the phrase, trust the process, trust in the universe. I use that to guide me in my life and my work. But left to my own, I would have named what we identify as surrender differently. These women show me the way, though. The way to view and apply this term. Surrender is strong. Surrender is the opening to new things. And through how they talk about surrender, I see that I've actually been applying this to my business forever. Surrender is a slowing down, and we'll hear this over again from my guests, but I love how Shauna Angel Blue wraps up surrender in episode 41. It's the universe working, and we can't stop it.
Well, the word that's coming in right now for me is vulnerability. And how willing are you to be human and be vulnerable in communicating with the people around you? And how willing are you to follow up and make an apology, a heartfelt apology, owning your side of the mess up?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And it's even it sounds like what you're saying is a slowdown of everything, not just driving, but
Yes.
a slowdown in the other areas, because to understand and to be vulnerable, you need to stop yourself, because that is that kinetic energy of, no, I've got to drive this program forward, or however those feelings are coming. So it's a slowing down. And that's really good to keep in mind. I feel like it's just the reality of things that things don't stop. Nothing stops.
No.
We're not living in an age of, well, it's Mercury retrograde, so I'm not going to do anything.
Uh-huh.
But just to keep in mind, and that slowdown, I really like that piece.
Well, it's a surrender. That's the third word I'll add, because it is slowing down whether we like it or not.
See, it's nature working on its own, whether we like it or not. So you slow down too and learn to work with the energy and not swim against it. Surrender is such a good word that it's filled with power. And as we'll hear episode 39's guest, Kelly Newsome Georges reference, it's part of a contrast. With surrender comes creativity and productivity.
There's awake and there's asleep. There's joy and there's pain. There's always these ideas of contrast. That's kind of how I think about rest, and it's how I think about productivity. We have to really have both. We were also talking before we hit record about words of the year, and I don't really do this that much. But this year, my planner asked me, and I thought, okay, I'll play. I actually kind of cheated, and I just chose my favorite word of all time anyway, which is surrender. And so those people who know me really well know that I've actually had this word tattooed on my foot for almost 20 years now. And I got it tattooed on my foot for two reasons. One of them was I couldn't surrender for shit. I was terrible at it. I couldn't let anything go. So I wanted a reminder. And the second reason was because I would sit in quote unquote meditation, which I hated because I couldn't let anything go. And I was like, well,
right. And everything.
I'm like, well, I'm looking down at my feet anyway. Might as well put it there. I think about like this idea of surrendering to so many things. And when you're able to really let go and to surrender into something, then you're able to come back with so much more force later. And it's hard for us to trust this because what we're taught is you got to push, you got to push, you got to push, you got to go harder, you got to harder. And you do want to work, but you also, I think it's particularly important for women. It's also important to know, to really sense, when is it time for me to rest? Because even if you look at nature, there's no kind of growth without restoration. You know, you can't force everything. You can't force grass to grow faster every moment of the day. And so I think it's really important for us to notice when are our rest cycles and when are our work cycles. And your rest cycle might be shorter than somebody else's, it might be equal, it might be longer. But I think it's important to notice when that is. I just had a client recently who was she went through a big rest cycle this year. And she was kind of like, oh, I haven't done anything. But I've had my best year ever. And I've sold more than ever, but I haven't done anything. And I was like, that's called the hibernation period. That's the rest period. And this is incredibly vital for creators. Anybody who's creating anything, which I think is kind of all of us to some extent.
Right.
The creative
Totally. In this
process has to have rest cycles and it has to have work cycles. You just have to do both. So this idea of contrast is really, really important. And that's what care can help you do.
If you are a never surrender type, I hope rehearing this changes your mind. This approach to our creative process, and I always refer to my work and the work that you do as creative, there must be surrender as part of the contrast to the push. And it even echoes what we were talking about with Shauna in the first segment as well. Kelly nails the explanation, and it makes me love the idea of surrendering. And this goes to show how important it is to find people who speak your language. There's so many ways to transfer the message, but Kelly's style really resonates with me, and I hope now with you too. So building on the idea of surrender and taking our cues from the natural world, a place that we definitely do not control, is my dear friend and episode 12 guest, Jen Warakomsky. In this clip, Jen and I talk about surrender when it comes to your thoughts. What do you keep? What do you lose?
Tuscany is a really great example of how we can look to nature to dictate how we can best take care of ourselves, look to taking things slower, look to being specific and doing specific things at specific times during the year. That's really important to me, and as well as just being connected to nature in general. So that's a perspective, and we can choose. We can go to the junk food source for our thoughts and consistently be thinking all of the junk thoughts, or we can go to the health food thought store and go there and bring in some healthy thoughts and continue to feed our mind in that way. And we definitely will have much better results because look, if you want to grow, you've got to let something go. I think about garden. With my garden, when you go into the garden, right, you're pulling off the weeds and you're taking off the dead leaves. This is so that a whole plant can survive and flourish. So it's the same thing with us. We just are mirrors of all of our surroundings.
From all three of these segments, we're talking about surrender being a slowing down. And it's in that slow down space where we allow new ideas in. We take a different look at our approach, or we just let the energy do its thing. But how does surrender show up for us practically in our business? That's always, it's a concept that buzzes about, but how can we identify it when we're in it? So I'm going to share a story of surrender. And it's how we heard earlier, it's followed by productivity and creativity. After we surrender, the path becomes clear. So I have a client that I'm working with on a Kajabi build out, and she had a very defined direction when we started. So I've created some systems and I've built out workshop and membership programs in Kajabi. And our next step was to create her website. So we've talked about her brand and her offers, and I mapped out a plan for her website and sent her off to gather the copy and the photos. And then I waited. And I waited some more. What I learned was that she was grappling with building out what we spoke about. When it was all on paper, was that what she wanted to offer in her business? She was getting some great influence and ideas from some other top practitioners in her industry, and it caused her to pause. And this is where the surrender comes in. The cause for pause was an indicator that she wanted to create a shift in her business. So we hopped on a call and I could feel what she was feeling. Like she knew what didn't feel right with her planned offers. And that was the start of the surrender. But she didn't know what the next step was. But as we spoke, it became so clear to me. This woman is a natural storyteller. Inside her stories, her expertise is woven, and at times her credentials too. I mean, she trains the top people in her industry. So I started to reimagine what her website needed to be and how she could get past the obstacle of expressing herself in copy, like writing it all out and it having to be a certain way. And the answer became so clear. Video, right? It's always there, but it really came forward. This woman has a way of describing her work and sharing her stories, and video is the perfect vehicle for her to get to be known wider and be exposed to more of her niche audience. While on the call, I listened to more of what she was sharing with each prompt that I mentioned. Every time I said something, she had another story to share. And she began to surrender further into the idea that this is how she could present herself in her truest form online. She doesn't want to be like the others in her industry. And this was her essence coming out. We outlined 14 topics for videos on the call, and one of those being an intro video for her website. This part was pretty exciting because she couldn't see this in herself. It needed to be seen from the outside and then be presented to her. And then it became attainable and believable for her. And in the scope of mapping out 14 plus videos, I took the pressure off, right? Let these stories and videos be as long or as short as they need to be. 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, like whatever. These are not, webinar or workshop trainings. So there's no labor of scripting. And maybe she's going to write out a few bullet points for things so she can remember that she wants to hit those points. But it's more about ease and flow and her bringing her natural essence to it. And also in the set, like the set could be her office, which has a mix of art and her framed degrees and her cat in the background. It's bright and colorful, and it further develops the audience knowing who she is through that space. Another aspect created with this new brand approach is that this is going to help her with her SEO tremendously. I mean, remember that YouTube is a search engine and it's driven by keywords. So creating this content with a coordinated effort on YouTube is going to serve her overall presence and let her website be found easier. This content is also going to be able to be repurposed into social media, building her presence on whatever platform she wants to be on, and also can be used in newsletters and on her site in the form of a blog. And it sounds like a lot of work. I'm rattling off all this stuff, but she also has a VA who's brought on. So she's going to be able to take care of all this and follow the content system that we create. For my client, it's the sharing stories part and the video part, and then the rest is able to happen for her. And the website. Back to the website build out. We lightened it up. We're shifting to building out a robust one-pager that's going to emphasize her expertise and highlight her testimonials of, with social proof of who she's worked with. And it's also then going to have this intro video. So we're going to cut down on what she has to write and think about and labor over that she's been, tossing about. And it's going to be a landing page that will also be a simple call to action for her videos to start out with. Hop on my website and schedule your assessment. And that brings up a whole nother point. Yes, you can assess your clients and choose who's right for you. So it isn't just book a call, buy this. It's fill out this form and we'll see if you're a right fit and she can follow up. Really like taking the pressure off her. And the best part, we reimagined the whole approach to the website build. She surrendered into these new concepts, seeing how she can create it with ease and use it in numerous places and bring her work and her story forward. And the best part of this, surrender happened in 90 minutes. So from the start of the call where she was laying out what she was thinking, to the storytelling, to the click of I get it, and then the new ideas and the foundation building of content, she surrendered fully into the idea in a super transformational time, like short period of time. So it's pretty powerful to be on a call like that, where this type of breakthrough. And it's exciting and it's energy generating and it's energetic thinking for sure. We both surrendered to the notion that what she originally wanted wasn't a fit. And this is an important concept to point out. You need to choose people to work with who get you and can also take a cue from the starting point that you're bringing. There was no way I was going to stuff her into this old concept that didn't feel right for her. And so that surrender, it starts with a pause. And it's good to take a moment to think about this. So who is the person in your business who can help you see the other side of the surrender? Take stock of who it is. Is it your business buddy? Or find a coach or a strategist to work with? And I love this episode and the idea that I can share a client example to bring this concept to life. Business is a fine balance between forging forward and pausing to shift direction. There's a time when all of these concepts are the right answer. So keep moving forward. Move forward with your thoughts and exposing yourself to different ideas, but then listen to your body. Listen for the right time to act on each. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Next week is 1 year of the Long Game Podcast. Woohoo! I'm so excited. Again, leave me a review on iTunes with how listening to the Long Game Podcast, whether it's all of the episodes or just one of them, has made an impact on you. And send a screenshot to hello@sandrasky.com and you'll receive one of the Long Game Podcast anniversary gifts. I've got 10 to send out to listeners like you. All right, guys, see you next week. Thanks for joining me today. You can access more info in the show notes at thelonggamepodcast.net. If today's show connected with you in some way, please share it with your friends or hop on iTunes and leave me a review. Until next time, keep playing the long game.